paint the what if picture of what does the P&L for this film really look like? We're constantly running those on the fly, when we're going around Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, etc.
So for indie filmmakers, that calculation, I assume, would the recommendation for them to focus, let's say, indie filmmakers making a $1 to $5 or $10 million, let's say $1 to $5 million film, would the recommendation be to focus on talent because X, actor might drive X amount of sales regardless of story, or would that be the
unfortunately,
recommendation?
cast is more important now than I think that it really ever has been. For a couple of reasons is one, it makes the movie look bigger no matter what the budget of the movie is. If you have people that are familiar, and people are just less likely to try stuff, especially driving in the movie theater and buying a ticket, or renting a film on VOD for a fixed price rather than waiting for streaming. And so cast can really help in that regard. And frankly, a lot of the places where movies live, whether it's a VOD platform, whether it's streaming, or a movie theater, that signals to those places that this is a film that's going to do more business, and so they're more likely to support it, and it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way. So that's why most of the Bleecker movies, with some exceptions, but most of them will have, name casts associated with them. Earlier they're like, but sometimes we buy a movie because we're passionate about it and it doesn't have any big cast. Like we picked up a beautiful little movie called The Starling Girl at Sundance earlier this year, knowing it was going to be a small movie and knowing that it didn't really have big famous actors, but that was just a film that we really believed in bringing to audiences.
And what was can you share the budget on that film? How big a film that was?
I think it was in the $3 million range, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So with going into genre and science fiction, what's your rollout strategy going to be? That I imagine it's going to be different for some of the smaller films. Like, for example, a film that you're listed as producer on, The Art of Self-Defense. I work for the Independent Film Festival of Boston. We had that film at our festival. It slowly built up, word of mouth through other festivals. And eventually, if I remember correctly, there was a slow rollout to a release nationwide. Is it going to be different with genre films that are going to be, maybe cost a little bit more, bigger production values and so forth?
Yes, I think so. And, Art of Self-Defense was actually kind of right in the middle. So, what's called a platform release, where you start off in a few cities, then gradually grow. It's usually a 4 to 5 week process before you're nationwide.
Right.
That tended to be the go-to move for, prestige films that we or Fox Searchlight or Focus or Sony Pictures Classics would release. That mode of distribution has really been hurt by in the post-COVID age. So you're not really seeing a lot of people do it anymore. Art of Self-Defense was, we basically hit New York, LA, Austin, San Francisco, I think maybe Portland, Seattle, like sort of hip cities.
Yep.
Especially ones that had Alamo Draft Houses, because they were a partner on that movie.
Yeah.
And then popped to like 600 screens nationwide the following weekend. So it was a bit of a faster rollout. We did a sci-fi comedy a couple of weeks ago called Jules, where Ben Kingsley.
Yep.
So I would say pre-COVID, that absolutely would have been a platform release movie. We would have started slow, built up word of mouth, but it's just the sort of that mode of releasing has largely disappeared, because it's hard also to stay in theaters as long as you used to. Theaters tend to be very they like to rotate out their titles very frequently now, and so that slow burn is just very hard. So we ended up going to almost 800 screens nationwide on week one with that movie, and it was definitely a success for what it was. For the genre titles we're releasing next year, yes, all of them will be nationwide releases right off the bat, whether that's 800 screens, 1,500 screens, 2,000 screens. All of them are going to be released all at once. I'm not even, next year, I'm not exactly sure if we'll do or try any platform releases. I think if anything, we'll probably look to do something similar to The Art of Self-Defense on a movie, which I cannot share, unfortunately. I desperately want to. We'll probably do something like that because there's a lot of similarities between this project and self-defense.
As we're recording this, the writer strike is over. The actors are still striking. Do those strikes, how do they affect your side of things? Is there going to be just a lack of things good coming in 6 months and you do something else? Do you stand by, or is there plenty in the pipeline that a strike of 6 months or however long doesn't really affect your end?
I think it's hard to say right now what the long-term effects are going to be. I think the thing that'll affect us the least is the actors strike, because if I don't add anything else to the 24 slate at this point, we're fine. We already have 10 things lined up, and we have like 3 things lined up for 2025. And on top of that, we're also able to continue production during the strike because we're independents. We've signed, or rather, our producers have signed something called an interim agreement with SAG. It basically says that we'll abide by their last counter to the studios, and then it'll be replaced by the final deal they reach with the studios there. And so, that once that's signed, you can sort of do whatever you want, and that includes publicity. We have a Meg Ryan film called What Happens Later that opens in November. And so
is this her directorial debut?
It's her second feature as a director.
Second feature, yeah.
She did a film called Ithaca 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Her and David Duchovny, it's a classic two-hander rom-com in an airport. It's a really lovely film. That was one of the earlier ones to get a interim agreement, because the plan is when that film releases, even if the strike is still going on or not, Meg will do the Today Show. Meg will be on the cover of People magazine.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be all around supporting the movie because SAG has given it the okay. In terms of the writer's strike, I don't know, because I'm an LA dad at this point, so all of my my son's friends' dads, or when we were hanging around the soccer field watching them play, they're all writers. And what I'm hearing a lot from them is a lot of the writers are taking the time to write spec scripts, write the scripts that they always wanted to write when they're not busy, writing episodes of a Star Wars show or this or that for a streamer. And so I'm wondering if there's actually going to be a boom of content interesting spec scripts. Yeah. And content that's more likely to be something that Bleecker or another independently minded company would go for. I just don't know. I think we'll have a better understanding probably in November, which is when the American film market is. If there's a lot of these so-called packages coming together where you've got director, cast, star, and a project looking for financing. If there's a lot flying around there, then I'll be very optimistic. If it's as quiet as, for example, Toronto was, which is something of a financing market as well as a film festival, and very, very little launched out of there. If it looks anything like that, at that point, I will be concerned about specifically content for 2025 being scarce.
Yeah, the programmer for the festival I work for, she went to Toronto, and yeah, she echoed the same things as you did.
It's funny. The only package that I saw that launched and sold at the festival, for financing, was actually one that we had done immediately before the festival. We're doing like an airplane style parody of Downton Abbey called Fockham Hall.
Okay.
I will be there opening night.
So that we announced that we're doing that one, but that was kind of it. It was just weirdly quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, we talk to everyone that we've been talking to on the podcast. We kind of ask about their unique stresses for their job. And so I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit about, what are the pain points on your end? In my head, I imagine it's like, oh, a deal's gone horribly wrong, or something, or is it those Excel formulas so protected that the math always works out, or almost always works out.
The math does not always work out. Because sometimes movies don't do what you want them to do, and sometimes they do more. It's because when I'm usually less worried. Actually, I'll say this: I have 2 moments where I'm the most stressed. One is when I see a director's cut of a movie for the first time, where I'm just like, I dragged the whole company into this movie. I hope it's good, or I hope doesn't cause problems. And usually when I get about halfway through a cut, I'll sort of know the dread will either increase or dissipate depending on what I'm seeing. So like I watched the director's cut of a film 2 days ago, and I was like, I had this sort of just sinking feeling all morning long, and I realized like, oh yeah, it's because I have to go to the screening room and watch this movie. Fortunately, I was very happy with the cut. But that's always the toughest.
Mhm.
And then the other toughest part is honestly when the film is released and you start to see the numbers come in, if it's going to work or not. You know, we definitely had some successes this year, and we had some movies which really underperformed, and those are tough, especially as an independent company. And you know, the bigger the bet you make, both in terms of the budget of the movie and your marketing spend, the bigger the stakes are, and it can be pretty scary when something doesn't really connect. Like, you know, this year, you know, the film we did with Toni Collette, Mafia Mama.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that one up. I'm actually still looking forward to seeing that. I ride or die for Toni Collette. I was curious how that was for you guys.
It was one of these things where the movie came out to be kind of exactly what we signed up for. It's funny. She's fantastic in it.
Of course.
Everyone had a great time making it. And we committed more on that for marketing than we basically had any other movie we've done in years, and believed it could cross over into the mainstream. And I think we just got blindsided by the reviews. We knew that not everyone's going to be a fan. It's a very silly movie on purpose. And the reviewers really just went out for blood on it. I think that really hurt the performance of the film. So that was our big disappointment this year, even though loved working with Tony and Catherine Hardwicke and the producers. It's just sometimes you just get surprised by things, and that was not a good surprise.
Yeah, the marketing for that, I remember walking into my local theater, and that movie had a standee that was as large or possibly even bigger than a Marvel film. And I'm being dead serious. It was massive. You walked in and there was like a bigger than life-size Toni Collette sitting there in that chair. And it made me, I mean, I hadn't even seen a trailer yet. And I was like, well, I got to see this.
And then Trevor took it home.
Yeah. And then I took it home.
Well, you could thank Bentley Moore, who runs exhibitor marketing for us, for anything you see in theater.
Okay.
She's great.
For the films that you're doing in production, can you talk a little bit about what your role actually is on the films that Bleecker's doing?
Yeah. So I'm, as you guys probably, if you guys looked at my IMDb page, which I think you did, I'm always credited as executive producer on those movies and not producer, because I'm by no stretch of the imagination an actual on-set producer, and nor would I want to take any credit away for that. So what that means is we sort of, before the movie's made, we'll be consulted and usually have some approval rights on cast, sometimes department heads, certainly director, working hand in hand with the production, to build the movie up. We're sort of a backseat driver in that sense, because again, we're not the actual producers of the movie. It's, the way we get involved in financing films is as we do what's called a pre-buy or a negative pickup. So essentially, we're paying for part or all of the movie, but we're not cash flowing it. We're not personally producing it. It's a model that weirdly, you'll never know sometimes if a studio is actually making the movie, or they just agreed to basically, you agree to buy it after the film is done and delivered.
Sure.
This sometimes happens with major studio films. It happens with a lot of indies. Like, Black Swan was a famous one where, Fox Searchlight was credited as if they produced the movie, but they didn't. It was a worldwide negative pickup. So that's the way we get involved in the movie. So I'll be talking with the producer and the director if there's any changes we want to the script or to the cast or anything like that. And then when the movie goes into production, we basically go silent for that entire period of time. I'll watch dailies as they come in. I'll get updates, and sometimes again I'll go to set and be there for literally just a couple of hours. Usually, if I go at all, I find that I don't want to be accidentally disruptive to people that are probably having stressful day after stressful day making a movie. And then what happens is when the film wraps, there's usually a 10-week period until the director's cut is ready. And at that point, we get more directly involved in helping them shape the final version of the movie, because then it'll be a several week or several month process before the picture is locked. And then they go back away and they go finish the movie. They,